Why the Cross by Father Edward Leen, Part 2, The Tree of Life, Chapter 2, Second Reading. To secure this wealth, which can really add a cubit to man's stature, because it can vivify the soul with the strong life of God, a man must be prepared to sell all he hath. He must, that is, renounce his own values and replace them with those of Christ. The Redeemer's values were based on the judgment that, of themselves, material possessions had not substantial human worth, because they could not in any way enlarge or ennoble the soul. His unerring insight showed him that, when used correctly, they could contribute to the growth of personality. Yet in fact they most frequently proved an occasion of deterioration for the soul. The poverty and lowliness of the life of Jesus, irradiated by the splendor of his human greatness, were meant to teach men clearly, significantly, and vividly that the only true and lasting possessions were those that could be held by the soul. The only ambition that he judged worthy of a rational being was the ambition that should embolden a man to aspire after the riches of the life of God. The quote-unquote speculation that would amply repay a lifetime of anxious thought and untiring energy was, according to the mind of Jesus, the speculation having for its purpose the continual increase of one's initial stock of divine grace. The wealth of God is not given to the soul all at once. It is to be increased as a reward for the soul's own efforts, sustained by the supernatural aid of the Almighty. Growth in grace is growth in true greatness. To do and endure after the manner of Jesus, steadily refusing to part with the divine treasure under the menaces of hardship or the allurements of pleasure, is the active way of promoting this growth. The sacraments can produce great effects when the soul is disposed for their action through this purifying moral struggle. If the Christian is bidden to lose, it is in order that he may find more abundantly. If he is encouraged by his master to lay out, it is in order that he may recover his spendings at incalculable profit. Lay up to yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither the moth nor rust doth consume, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. The Saviour's great concern is that men should use their life on earth to the best account. These ideas are developed by Bossuet with his customary felicity of language in his sermons on the Nativity. He says, Jesus Christ has come as the true reformer of the human race. He is the master who imparts to us the knowledge that enables us to distinguish between what is of worth and what is worthless. He points out to us how we are to remove from our path the obstacles that prevent us from going to God, and initiates us into the secret of contenting ourselves with Him alone. This lesson is not given so much by words as by the manner of life he elected, for it was not incompetence, helplessness, or misfortune that reduced him to poverty. He chose that condition, for he believed that worldly grandeur, being false and imaginary, was prejudicial to true greatness. From the heights of heaven he saw that men were attracted only by material goods and purely external pomp. Touched with compassion, he came in person to disabuse their minds of their false values, so deeply rooted in their habits of thought. And pursuing the same theme in another discourse, he says, if the pleasure men seek and the greatness that they admire were real, who would have merited them more perfectly than the man God? But as Tertullian says, he judged these things unworthy of him and his. The Son of God could have been born to wealth and worldly distinction. If he is without either, it is not through necessity, but through choice. His choice is necessarily determined by an unerring judgment of relative values. In his birth, Jesus Christ has made the important decision that the grandeurs esteemed as such by the world were not for him, and that he should reject them for himself. What he has rejected, has he not condemned? There was a divine congruity in all this. It was surely fitting that one to whom the solid grandeurs of heaven were familiar should disdain the hollow pomp and empty circumstance of earth. Jesus revealed his innate greatness in showing himself completely independent of all the things that men prize. The very absence of purely meretricious glory, as shadows in a picture, served to throw into greater relief the real splendor of his personality. The divine reality showed undimmed, its radiance not being obscured by an atmosphere charged with earth-born vapors. Wherefore in all he did and suffered there are found in a marvelous harmony human weakness and divine power. He is laid in a manger, and a star of heaven proclaims his glory. He is born among the animals, and the angels chant his praises. At his birth he is swathed in the bands of infancy, and the wise men adore him. He is rejected by earth and warmly received by the purest of human souls. He is tempted by the spirit of darkness, and his wants are seen to by the Spirit of light. He lives in want and dependence, but he feeds the hungry, gives sight to the blind, and recalls the dead to life. The Savior, while taking care that the necessities, miseries, and limitations to which he was subjected should prove beyond all question the reality of his humanity, saw to it that the reality of the divine should not be wholly eclipsed. Even when he appears most perfectly as the Son of Man, he knows how to manifest himself as the Son of God. The divine was the reality he came to give to man. As many as received him, he gave them power to be the sons of God, and so to share in his own greatness and distinction. By word and example he sought to teach men that they were to become great by an inner development of the soul, not by the external accumulation of goods. His own humanity was the bait he threw to them in order to draw them to the divinity. I attach myself to Jesus, says Bossuet, by that which he shares with man, namely human nature, so that thereby I may gain a participation of what he shares with God the Father, namely the divine nature. The Savior would not have proved as Savior for us were he only man and not God. Life on earth would be for us without hope, unless it held for us something more durable than the purely human. If it pointed to nothing beyond itself, it would close for us in darkness and a bitter loneliness, leaving all the deep aspirations of our being unfulfilled. Though men, we have a craving for that which is beyond men, for what is divine. Jesus puts the divine within our reach. He carries it in his own person, in its fullness. It is enveloped in a mesh woven of earthly conditions. The outward appearance is rough and unpleasant to the senses, and coarse to the touch. The poverty and hardship of the Redeemer's human life is hardly attractive to self-indulgent fallen nature. Perhaps it is not rash to discern in the incarnate God's election of suffering and lowliness and poverty another intention of divine wisdom over and above that already touched upon. Jesus once likened himself to a door. I am, he said, the door of the sheep. The sacred humanity is meant to serve for men as a door opening on a divine world. Were men to find the circumstances with which by deliberate choice Christ invested his human life too appealing for the instincts of their fallen nature, there would be danger of their halting there and not passing on. Satisfied with the human, they would not lift their aspirations to the divine. The human, in the Christian scheme, must be stripped of all that might give it the appearance of being ultimate and of final value in itself. The trials, discomforts, and disabilities of all kinds that so frequently are the lot of the faithful should not generate a disbelief in the power of Christianity to bring happiness to its adherents. Radiant happiness enveloped the cradle of Christianity. To those capable of appreciating that happiness, the noonday does not belie the promise of the dawn. To the sensual and the proud, the cave of Bethlehem will always be repellent. To those who see Christianity from the outside, that is, to the practical unbelievers, it has little charm. Those who know but the externals of the true faith never penetrate to the inexhaustible treasures, not only of healing and comfort, but of love and joy that it conceals. It is only the saints and those who resemble them in their tastes who exploit these hidden treasures. Physically considered, the cave in which God was born was without either charm or mystery. It is only for the senses that it is shallow and unromantic. To the soul spiritually enlightened, it offers a mystery of unfathomable depth, a mystery that can be explored for endless ages without being exhausted, and that yields up perennial streams of tranquil joy. Divine treasures are to be found in the cave by all who are willing to accept the human values of Jesus and his judgment as to real wealth and real poverty. To one accustomed to deciphering the handwriting of the Lord, the rugged outlines of the cave form themselves into clear characters from which may be spelled the great truth that the man who has all that the world eagerly seeks but does not have God has nothing, and that he who finds God, though he want all else, possesses everything. There is in all men, by reason of the natural limitations of their being, an urge toward expansion and a desire for distinction. Following the instincts developed in him by original sin, man pursues a false road to greatness. Jesus came to give a right direction to this deep-seated instinct in man. He points out that a human person attains greatness not by what he has, but by what he may become. An accumulation of the earth's goods adds nothing to a man's personality. It is by growth of soul, not by acquisition of material goods, that he becomes great. By his own deliberate choice of lowliness and poverty, the Savior strove to enforce his teaching. Poor in worldly goods, he was rich in real wealth, for he possessed God fully. He puts this real wealth, with the greatness it procures, within the reach of his brethren. The lesson of his life teaches men how they are to gain the divine treasures he has merited for them.